Good morning, Oxygen Life Church. And I say that to you not just as a greeting, but that it really is a good morning. The Bible teaches us in 118 verse 24, it says that this is the day that the Lord has made. So no matter what circumstance we find ourselves in, no matter what's going on around us, it's a day that the Lord has made. And he says, let us rejoice and be glad in it. So we know the Lord also says his mercies are new every morning. So it is indeed a good day. Next time you walk down the passage and say, good morning, wife, good morning, children, we can know those words carry substance, that it's good because he has made it. Some of you might have woken up this morning going, I don't know if it's a good day. I'm feeling uncertain. I'm experiencing anxiety, maybe fear about the day, about the future, feeling like you're in obscurity. I want to hone in on this word obscurity, that the times are obscure, like the future's fuzzy, like you can't see what's going to happen. Everything looks fuzzy. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what on earth is going on, and I believe that God deliberately puts us into seasons of obscurity, into seasons where we don't know what's going on, because he's looking for something in our hearts. He's looking for faith. He puts us in times where we don't know what is going to happen, so that we need to trust the one who does know what is happening, and the one who is not secure. That even though the economy is uncertain, it's shaky, even though the government is doing their best, but they don't know where this is going to go, what's going to happen, our businesses, there's uncertainty there, that we need to put our faith in the one who knows what is going on, the one who holds tomorrow in his hands. That as we find ourselves, that the sand is shifting underneath us, that we can plant our feet on the rock of Jesus, who isn't shifting, in the one that is not anxious, that God has not been taken by surprise by COVID-19. He's not worried and concerned. There's no fear in God. He's not fearful about the times, that God knows exactly where he's directing history. He knows exactly what is going on and what he's doing, and that we can put our faith in that, in him, in the midst of obscurity and darkness, that we can put our faith in the one who is the beginning and the end. He already knows where he's going, what's going to happen, and we can put our trust in him. And the Bible's full of examples of people that faced obscurity and had to learn not to despise obscurity, but to find the treasures in the midst of obscurity, and to trust in the one who knew what was actually going on when they didn't know what was going on. And the Bible's full of examples of people like that, and I want to hone in on one particular person. But I mean, you can look at people like Abraham, who was told to leave his country without being told where he was going. He didn't know where he was going. He was given a son of promise, and then God told him to sacrifice that son. And he must have been going, God, like, what is going on? What are you doing? And he had to find faith in that time to say, well, God, I don't know, but I trust that you know. Think of Naomi, who lost her husband and her sons and faced an uncertain future. She had to put her trust in God. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. He didn't know what would happen there. I think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who, they refused to bow to the idol, not knowing. They even said, God is able to save us, but even if he doesn't, we still won't bow to your idol. So they weren't certain, and we might be feeling our hearts being drawn to bow to an idol of fear or anxiety or bitterness towards God, or and bowing to that idol, and God's looking for, even in our hearts, to say, look, we know God can save us, but even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow to fear, and we're still not going to bow to this thing of anxiety, and we're going to choose to trust God and not to waver or to compromise. I think of David, his son Absalom usurped the kingdom from him. He's in the desert running for his life. He was the true king. He didn't know what would happen. What was God doing? I thought of doing this character study on Job, because we know he lost everything. I mean, he lost his family, his house. He didn't lose his wife, but he found himself in the end sitting in ashes. He had lost everything, picking boils out of his body, even his health he had lost. And without any explanation, not knowing what was going on, why it was happening to him, feeling like he didn't deserve it. but having to, in that place of darkness and obscurity, to choose to trust God and to trust that God had him, that God was over his life, and that God knew what was going on. But I want to look at a man who probably faced some of the most intense obscurity and uncertainty, undoubtedly felt very confused and perplexed by what was happening to him. And that man is Joseph. I can't read the scriptures because it's too long, but the highlights, when we know the story, he was living the life, man. He was his dad's favorite. He had a beautiful coat, a Technicolor dream coat, and in that place, out of nowhere, suddenly he was sold into slavery by his own brothers, and kind of going, God, what is going on here? This isn't what I had planned for my life. And yet he found himself sold into Potiphar's household, and then in an act of obedience, when Potiphar's wife had made an advance on him, in an act of trying to honor God, act of purity, suddenly he's thrown into prison, into darkness. And God, but I chose to do what was right, and now I'm in prison. And maybe you find yourself in that place, where you're going, God, I've honored you with my business. I've honored you with my life. I've tried to do that which is right. I've tried to be holy and pure, and yet I find myself in this place of total obscurity, and it seems like things aren't going right. And in that place, Joseph, the Bible talks about taking thoughts captive. He would have had to practice that in a huge way. Feelings of, God, where are you? Are you even with me? Like, are you faithful to your promises? Are you aware of what's going on in my life? I mean, he could have chosen to get bitter with God, to get angry with God, to kind of withdraw into self-isolation, and to just harden his heart towards God. But he had to learn that there were treasures to be found in that prison, in that place of darkness. What's interesting, when we look back at the story now, and we know that it was God's plan for him to get sold into slavery. It was God's plan for him to end up in prison because God needed Joseph in Egypt. I mean, Joseph didn't know that. He was just thrown in there, and he didn't know this was God's will. He was thrown into prison. God needed him there because that's where he would meet the cupbearer and the baker, and he would come closer to fulfilling even the dreams God had given him. But Joseph had no idea. He was just in darkness. The theologians tell us he was in Potiphar's house for about a year, and probably in prison for about 12 years. I mean, that's a long time. And in that place, he had to go, God, what are you doing in my heart? God had to deal with his character, had to prepare him for what God had next for him. Even after he interpreted the cupbearer's dream and said, remember me when you come to Pharaoh, he had to wait 2 years after that before Joseph had his dream. I mean, Joseph had probably resigned himself to the fact that, God, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. But I trust you. I don't know what's going on, but I trust that you know. And you might find yourself in that place now, like Joseph, and like Abraham found himself, like the fathers of our faith, Abraham and Moses and Noah and David and Job and Joseph and Naomi even, where you're in obscurity, and you need to learn not to despise obscurity, but to say, God, what are you doing in my life? What are you wanting to fashion and form in my heart in this season, of obscurity and perplexity, where I don't know what's going on? Lord, teach me to trust in you. Help me to keep my eyes fixed on you, because the one who is certain. And the scripture I felt about this morning was Isaiah 41:10, where he's speaking to Israel. He says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. And I mean, David had to trust in that. When he was in the desert, he'd lost the kingdom. His own son had usurped it. And on the run, probably sweating in the desert, fearing for his life, he penned Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In the midst of darkness, the valley of darkness, that the Lord is guiding you, that he prepares a table and a feast for you in the midst of enemies, and that that the Lord is looking for that response in our hearts, of no matter what circumstance you find yourself in, no matter what's going on with your business, that the Lord is your shepherd. He's watching over your soul, and to press into him and to find peace in the midst of the storm. So I just wanted to share this with you by way of encouragement. May God bless you today, and let's continue to trust in the one who is over our lives, Cheers.